So, my name's Roger, and I am prejudiced. But it takes a little bit of courage to say that nowadays, because prejudice is sort of scorned. It's scorned off. We're not supposed to be prejudiced, and we're certainly not supposed to be racially prejudiced, which has come to be equated with racism. So I'm not going to say that I'm a racist, because I'm not. Certainly not in the sense that it was originally meant, which meant sort of racial hatred, sort of hating other races, or being contemptuous about people of other because of their race, or being a racial supremacist. I am none of these things, but I am racially prejudiced. I mean, I'm prejudiced about everything, but maybe I'm especially prejudiced about race. I think everyone is, if they're honest. But of course, we can't be honest, because we have in the West at least, we have a sort of an ideology. Not sure whether you've called it sort of a state ideology. It's an ideology that all our elites are beholden to, which they either believe in sincerely or have to pay lip service to, because if they don't, they won't get on. They won't get jobs in politics, the media, academia. So they have to pretend not to have any prejudices, especially racial prejudices. But I'm not. I've never felt inclined to pretend. I mean, I like to be honest, which I think is a virtue, and I like it when other people. I like it when other people are honest. You know, if somebody. I mean, once it can be quite refreshing when somebody tells you, for example, in sort of a therapy group, that they don't like you, that there's something about you that they just don't like. It's refreshing, and I've experienced something like that, and I felt, a lot closer to the person. I've liked the person a lot more for being so honest. So sometimes it's difficult to be honest, because you fear that you're going to give offence. And I'm not saying you should be absolutely honest about absolutely everything. If you think somebody's ugly, or I don't know, has some particular trait, big ears, big nose, or goodness knows what else, or obese or something, I mean, it's probably better to be a bit tactful and not mention that, because it would just give offence and wouldn't be to any. That's all it would do, give offence, and couldn't have no positive outcome. Whereas being honest about how you feel, especially in regard to race, I think it's very important that we start to be more honest about that, because it has corrupted and perverted our society, Western society, hugely. We're living a lie, basically. We're all pretending to be colourblind, to be celebrating diversity. And it's just not true. Most of us, the vast majority of us, are certainly not colourblind. We don't celebrate diversity. Most of us prefer the company of members of our own race. I know obviously there are exceptions, and some people really do seem to enjoy diversity. But I suppose if you've grown up, if you're in a society that's multiracial and multicultural, been to school where you've got people of all different races and cultures, then I guess that's all you know, and you probably do like it, because that's all you know. But that wasn't the kind of society that I was born into. I've experienced, the transformation that has taken place in Britain, or in parts of Britain, one should say. Obviously there are many parts, probably the majority of Britain is still pretty white, hideously white, as former Director General of the BBC, Greg Dyke, might put it. But I was born into in a London suburb. Let me just check the time, because I need to go out very soon, so I have to pause this and carry on. Hopefully I can remember where I leave off. This isn't going to be published raw anyway. If it's published at all, it will be edited. So yes, I was born in what is now the London Borough of Brent. At the time it was called Wembley. And in the 50s, I was born 1949, so I grew up there in the 1950s. It was very white. There were. I can actually remember seeing, or sort of or can remember seeing my first black person, first Asian, and finding them very exotic. They were very unusual. Everyone was white. And the school I went to, Vickers Green Primary School in Perivale, which had it was the anniversary of its founding in 1938, and they had a reunion yesterday, because the head teacher was leaving, and she thought she'd try and organise a reunion of old pupils, and virtually hardly any turned up. Just about, maybe half a dozen of us, none at all from my class, or no one that I knew at all, unfortunately. But so anyway, that was the school I went to, and it was completely white. I don't remember there being any non-white people at school, and I probably would have noticed if there had been. And now you couldn't imagine a greater contrast. There are still one or two white children there, but they are very much a minority. It's sort of I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably 90% non-white, I'd guess. So that's and that's my experience, of course, and the whole area where I grew up is now. I think it was. When I lived there, when I was growing up there in the 50s, it must have been 95%, if not more, white. Obviously some of them could have been Irish, Jewish, but there was no sort of diversity. There were no black or brown people, I suppose, is the one way of putting it. No blacks or Asians. It was entirely white Europeans. Now, I read some statistics about Wembley a little while ago, and I think now white people are a minority. Well, that's pretty obvious that they're a minority, but about 20%. Been reduced from the overwhelming majority, almost the sole population, to 20%. That's my personal experience, which clearly a lot of people haven't had. Puts me, I suppose, in a fairly, obviously not unique situation, but a special situation, because I've experienced this transformation from a complete lack of diversity to an overabundance of diversity, and I don't feel like celebrating it. In fact, as I've posted on my blogs or in my tweets numerous times, celebrating diversity is nothing other than Orwellian newspeak for native whites to celebrate their own ethnic decline, ethnic displacement, i.e. white flight. We haven't been driven out, by the sword or by the gun or whatever, but people have moved away because they cease to feel comfortable with so many immigrants around. But anyway, this is what celebrating diversity means. Celebrating our ethnic displacement, decline. We are now native white Britons are now an ethnic minority in large swathes of our major cities, and ultimately our ethnic demise. Because over time, obviously it's not going to happen, what was that noise? I don't know. Quickly, it's going to take a while, a few more generations. I mean, I won't experience it, but eventually, I mean, it is actually predicted that in London, whites are already almost a minority. I don't think quite yet, but that's only because there are so many Eastern Europeans here. But pretty soon, whites will be an ethnic minority. I think we maybe have already become an ethnic minority in some cities, and eventually will become an ethnic minority in the country as a whole. I think I've seen a prediction sort of in about 2066, we predicted to become an ethnic minority, and that's something that our elites expect us to celebrate or not have a problem with, which is complete madness. I mean, it is so, yeah, I can't even find the words to express it. It is so over the top, so outrageous, so insane. And I think for that very reason, it's difficult to grasp. Right, so I'm running out of time, because I have to, I need to go for a walk, because my sister's coming round to keep an eye on my mum at 7 o'clock, and I said I'd be away by 6:30. It's now 20 past, and I need a few minutes to get ready, so... Alright, you don't need to stay sitting in this circle. You can go off and sort of do your own thing for a while, and I'll be back, okay?